I asked the president if he would abide by the Supreme Court's order directing his administration to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's the undocumented immigrant father who was mistakenly deported, that's according to the administration, to a super prison in El Salvador. The administration alleges he's a gang member. That's something his attorney and wife deny. But our conversation evolved into an exchange over the role of the courts, presidential authority, and President Trump's views on upholding the Constitution. Take a listen. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return, you've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your attorney general says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, you know, and your Attorney General has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that. There are some people that say, bring him back, put him in trial, and you get him out right away, because you see what happened just this morning. Tapes came out, horrible tapes from his wife. You don't get much worse than that. You don't get, I mean, he seems certainly like a very dangerous, very bad person, but even the wife, who was so afraid, she was afraid to talk, and all of a sudden tapes got released this morning that were devastating to him.
And this is the point, sir, about due process. The Constitution says every person, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Why not push to have him come back, present all of that evidence in court, let a judge decide?
Well, I'll leave that to the lawyers, and I'll leave that to the Attorney General of the United States,
but
because they're in it. You have to understand, I'm dealing with Russia and Ukraine. I'm dealing
and we're
with
going to talk about that.
I'm dealing with Iran. I'm dealing with Rwanda and Congo, who are fighting, and we're trying to get that one straightened out, and I think we have done that. Did a great job. Nobody even talks about it, but I think we're close to doing that. They're looking like they're going to maybe make a peace deal, which would be good. But I'm dealing with a lot of different things. I don't know much about this gentleman other than I hear he's an absolute not good person. And I have very capable legal people, John Sauer, as you know, and all top people. And I have to rely on that to interpret whatever's said by the Supreme Court. Now, with that being said, I have tremendous respect for the Supreme Court. Look, 3 of the people are people I appointed.
Right.
And I have great respect for the Supreme Court. And I would expect that the Attorney General will be doing the right thing.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know.
It
seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth, some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
And joining me now is Congressman Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida. We should also note that he is running for governor in the great state of Florida, the Sunshine State. Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be back with you.
It's good to have you back. I know it's a busy time for you, so we really appreciate it. We're going to talk about the president's comments there as well as the economy. But let's talk about that moment when he said, I don't know, when I asked him if he has to uphold the Constitution of as the president of the United States. What was your reaction to hearing that? Do you think he has to uphold every part of the Constitution, including the Fifth Amendment?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. I think what the president was talking about is, yes, he's going to uphold the Constitution. He's taking advice from his legal team, led obviously by the White House counsel, the Attorney General of the United States, everybody working at the Department of Homeland Security, about all of the parameters that they are using to deport illegal aliens out of this country, which is the core of President Trump's victory last November. Let's remember, the American people have been clear that they want criminal illegal aliens, number one, and then illegal aliens overall returned to their home countries. Donald Trump is fulfilling that promise. Now, I think to the broader question in this entire situation, is it okay for the previous administration to abuse the border security laws, abuse asylum, abuse temporary protected status, open up the country to millions of people, and then hide behind due process where it would take us 15 years to actually process people back out of the United States?
And you're talking about the numbers. You're saying there are so many people here that it would just take too long. But let me ask you, I mean, the Constitution says that everyone who's here is entitled to due process. So I understand there are big numbers that you are talking about and that the president is dealing with. But if you're going to follow the Constitution, don't you have to follow what it says by letter and law?
Well, I think first, the other thing is you have to look at this. When you come in, let's say on an asylum package, that is at the discretion of the administration. The administration is now saying, you know what? We are going to have a legal detainer for you to be deported, and you are going to be removed from the United States. That's under the premise of how you came in. Second thing, every illegal alien that came here, the first thing they did is they broke the law coming into our country. They broke the law. Let's level set here. That's what they did. So there is an orderly process that the president and his team is going through. They're not just rounding up people and dropping them out of the country. That is not true. Everybody that's been deported to this point has had a legal deportation order executed by the president's administration.
But in this case, in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the administration said it was an administrative error. And in 2019, an immigration judge issued an order that's still in effect that he should not be deported back to El Salvador. And I guess this goes back to the question that I was asking to President Trump. Do you think that everyone, citizens and non-citizens, are entitled to due process?
Well, first and foremost, let me be clear with you. When it comes to due process, that is a privilege reserved for American citizens. When people are in our country illegally, there is a semblance of due process, but not nearly at the level of a United States citizen, of an American. There are two different standards. You come to America, you are a guest in the United States. That privilege can be revoked. And a lot of these illegal aliens were not guests. They showed up at the southern border. Joe Biden abused our laws, ignored our laws, and let them in. And yet, so what are the American people supposed to say about that?
Well, the Constitution, I mean, let me just read you. This is the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces. And then it goes on to say, nor shall any person be subjected for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life, limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So the Constitution says any person, not citizen. And therein lies the debate and the root of my question. I mean, does any person just apply to citizens in your mind, or does it apply to citizens and non-citizens? The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, says it applies to citizens and non-citizens.
Well, let's be very clear. First and foremost, when the framers wrote our Constitution, they never envisioned that there would be an executive that would allow millions of people to come into the country illegally. They never fathomed that. Number two, more importantly, you have a situation right now. Is it okay for any administration to not follow the law, abuse border security laws, let millions of people in, and then hide behind the court system to say, well, now they're here, so now we have to go through a lengthy process? Let's examine this right now. Right now, what we know is that when people came into the country illegally, almost 90% of them would not even go to the hearings. So if you're supposed to show up for a hearing and you do not go, what are we supposed to do as a country?
Very
at that
quickly,
point?
let me just interject, and we're running out of time, and I still have to get to the economy.
Sure.
To your point about the hearings, does Congress need to work harder to get more funding, to get more resources to the courts so that you can better process people who are here, who are undocumented?
In the One Big Beautiful Bill, there will be dollars provided to the administration to speed up the deportation efforts. I will add that one of the things we have to be very sober about is that the gravity upon which all these people have been brought to our country, it is not physically possible to hire that many judges and process them out of the country. This is why you cannot have open borders to begin with.
Okay, let's move on to the economy.
Sure.
I have to get your reaction to the president effectively saying that kids can have or should have $2 and not $30. They should have fewer pencils. Do you think that's the right argument for the president to be making about his tariff policy?
Look, I think the argument the president is making is that overall, if you look at where we are, prices have come down. Even the GDP read that just came out that showed a contraction, you know why that is? It's because of the federal government contracting. That's a good thing. Private investment in the economy year over year is up over 20%. Personal consumption in the economy year over year is up over 2%. So individuals are consuming. There's private domestic investment in our economy. The federal government is shrinking.
Yeah.
But when it comes to goods, prices are coming down. If people make purchasing decisions on what they're going to do with their own resources, those are their personal choices.
As I just noted with the president in the interview, of course, some prices are going up. The economy shrank. As you know, the stock market has been volatile and fears about inflation are increasing. Let me just play you something very quickly that Republican strategist Karl Rove had to say. Get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
I thought it was really problematic when he said, well, you know what? The kids, those little girls at Christmas, they don't need $30. They can do it, too. And if they have to pay a couple more bucks for them, OK. Well, it sounds like Mr. Scrooge. And the ordinary American is like, wait a minute, I thought you were on my side.
Is Karl Rove right?
No, I don't think Karl's right for a number of reasons. Number one, first of all, it's still within the first 100 days. We just passed it the other day. The president is working on his entire economic agenda. Lower tax prices, lower taxes, we're going to take care of that across the street. More business investment is already happening right now. You have to let the president work through the trade policy. Now, if you're going to talk about the words he used around dolls or strollers, tell every parent out there that's driving their kid back and forth to summer camp starting in a month or so, back and forth to practices like my wife does with my son, gas prices are down across the United States. That is a boon to the American consumer, a boon to families. It will help parents afford the necessities and the desires of their kids.
Very, very quickly, because we're out of time. How long do you think Americans are going to give this president? He's talking about a transition period. How long are they going to be patient? We've been talking to his supporters who say they do want relief right now.
Well, the American people are with President Trump. He won a mandate for a reason.
But
the
how long
previous
does he have?
administration
How long
raised
does he
prices
have?
over 4 years. We're going to get all this stuff done over the next several months, and it will kick it into this economy. By the time we hit Thanksgiving, we'll be rocking and rolling.
All right. Congressman Byron Donalds gave me a timeline. I'm going to hold you to it, and we'll have you back. Sure. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your being here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.